Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. We're back with another tactical analysis as a massive tie took center stage in the Champions League with Hansi Flick's Bayern Munich hosting Pochettino's PSG. In a repeat of last year's final, PSG were hoping a change in management would make the difference, whilst Bayern looked for a repeat, which your votes before the match suggested. In the end, the match finished 3-2 to PSG, thanks to goals by Mbappe and Marquinhos, whilst Thomas Müller and Choupo-Moting scored for Bayern Munich. The XG showed that Bayern were incredibly wasteful, as they created much more, ending 4.14 to 1.54. But what tactics did both managers use? Let's take a look. A reminder of the lineups, as both teams opted for the 4-2-3-1, although several injuries meant that this personnel was shuffled throughout the match. For formations like this, match updates, team and player stats, check out our video sponsor, the OneFootball app, which is absolutely free through the link in the description below. And you may also be interested in these two dedicated videos taking a look at each team's tactics this season, and they will be linked in the comments below. But let's start with what Bayern did in possession, as they had 64% of the ball. Early on, when Bayern looked to play out, PSG were disciplined in their pressing. At times, this was a 4-2-3-1, with Neymar always sure to track Kimmich to make progression difficult, as Goretzka pushed high between the lines early to try and get more numbers there. But it could just as easily be a 4-4-2. But the front two wouldn't necessarily pressure the centre-backs, but rather try and cover the route into the pivots, knowing that Bayern liked to create a central overload. In this shape, we would also see Di Maria initially tuck into the midfield to cut off a pass into this inside channel. And once the ball did go out to Hernandez, Di Maria would then apply pressure, using the touchline as an extra defender. But the front two are not natural defenders, so as the game went on, they began to be caught higher up the pitch more and more often. And Bayern would take advantage of this consistently down the left-hand side. The centre-backs, Alaba then Hernandez, would be able to carry the ball fairly easily past the first line of pressure and create this overload on the left-hand side with the left-back and Coman. The positioning of Goretzka, Müller and at times Coman made it difficult for either Danilo or Gay to come and press the man. So if Di Maria instead pushed out, behind him there would now be a 2 versus 1 with the left back and Coman, and once found, Coman consistently looked to attack Dagba in this zone, and he was consistently able to get down the byline, in particular to cross. In fact, these 1 versus 1s meant that Coman completed 5 dribbles, the most in the match. The centre-back could also stay deeper, and Kimmich would move across to this left-hand side to pick up the ball in space. Again, the men between the lines made it difficult for anyone to close him down, so he got space here to dictate the game. As a result, he completed the most passes for the team, and you can see the influence of the left-hand side, with Hernandez and Davis being second and third. The PSG midfield would come across to cover the central options, and as a result, Draxler often had to tuck in to cut off another central option. And Sané and Müller were interchangeable down the right, but the general principle was to keep a man in the half space to force Diallo narrow and free up space for the switch to the wider man. Kimmich attempted the most long balls for them, and most of them originated from this left-hand position going out to the right. When Sané received 1 versus 1, he often tried to take on Diallo, but despite getting into good positions in the box for shots and cutbacks, he wasn't able to make the most of any of them. Müller on the other hand was more likely to look for a cross, and this is where Bayern were incredibly dangerous. They consistently looked to overload the box, with Choupo-Moting, Müller and Coman at the back post being consistent threats. Danilo at centre-back was a difference maker, and his physical presence and positioning allowed him to make several last-ditch interventions for the Parisians. But we see elements of this in the Choupo-Moting goal. Kimmich plays the ball from left to right, out to Pavard this time, with Sane in the half space, and we see that Draxler has been caught more narrow. Bayern commit 4 men into the box, overwhelming PSG's backline, and Choupo-Moting is able to finish. But PSG looked dangerous from these positions on the transition. Both Kimmich, Goretzka initially, and soon Alaba tended to push high up when in possession. This meant that there was often a gaping hole between the centre-backs on the halfway line and the rest of the team. Neymar from this higher position could look to be the link player, dropping deep to pick up the first pass, whilst Mbappe and either one or both of the wingers looked to make supporting runs, and the Brazilian would then look to pick out a pass. We see this in Mbappe's second. The Bayern attack breaks down, and both pivots are high, meaning that there is space in the centre. Neymar and Di Maria are attacking from wider, whilst Mbappe is more central, so Di Maria cuts in to receive centrally, and his first time pass finds Mbappe, who can then finish well. Let's touch on PSG in possession, although they did not have much of the ball. They would drop both centre-backs into the box, and Bayern position themselves ready to press, with the wingers coming narrow to track the centre-backs. Due to their early lead, PSG were risk-averse at times, instead going long immediately, and without any aerial threat, this would essentially gift the ball back to Bayern. When they played short, things were different however, with Navas initially playing short to draw in a winger before looking to chip a ball into the fullback. And Bayern continued to press high, with Goretzka and Müller looking to cover the pivots, whilst Hernandez would then try to push up to press the free fullback. So, Neymar was key in these first phases, as he would drop into the midfield to be the extra link to receive, and often try and play in Di Maria against the out-of-position Süle initially. And we do see shades of this in Mbappe's first goal. Overall, Bayern sorely missed Lewandowski, as it's hard to imagine him passing up so many chances. But PSG missed Verratti and Paredes just as much, as they were poor in the midfield in possession. The second leg promises to be interesting, as Bayern are far from out of this tie. But what did you make of the match? Drop it down below. And if you want even more content whilst helping to support the channel, consider checking out my Patreon at patreon.com/footballmadesimple. You'll get early access to videos, exclusive videos, as well as access to the upcoming FMS video podcast. And I'd like to give a special shout out to Alec Dainty for all the support on Patreon. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.